I also I had somebody today that commented on our intro and outro music and said how much they loved it, that it's their favorite podcast stuff. So I sent them a link to the song, which is just funny because we were talking about that earlier today.
Yeah. Well.
Welcome back to the Reverend and the Reprobate. Is that the right sound?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't for what purpose?
Today on our show Expo, first off, the Reverend and the Reprobate, welcome. This is a show about two best friends that are interviewing people that we have no business talking to. I'm Lucas Pinckard. I am the Reverend, the pastor of First Baptist Church Lake Dallas.
I'm Dan Gibson, the fun one.
Yeah, also the Reprobate. Man, thanks for joining us
to say the
once
whole title.
again. Yeah, today we have got an incredible guest on our show, Leanne Morgan. Leanne Morgan, who is a great dry bar comic. She has just blown up on social media. Most of her videos right now are in the 100,000s to millions range on where they've been watched. She has been kind of for several of us sort of the voice of reason during the pandemic.
Yep.
I found out about her right beforehand. She does a great bit about her daughter, her middle daughter, that she's beautiful and she's brilliant and she's athletic and she's mean. And I was like, that describes my little sister to a T. And so I found out about this video and I was talking to you about it. I talked to my mom about it. I was like, man, she's hilarious. And my mom's like, I already know about Leanne Morgan. You don't have to tell me about this. It's like, oh, okay. Well, there you go.
You know, her comedy feels like comfort food.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good way to describe it, but that's what it feels like.
Maybe that's why. And she talks a little bit in this interview, and we didn't really go into it, that she did some work with Paula Deen. I wonder if that's
lots
what
of
it
butter.
is.
There's lots of butter in her comedy.
Paula Deen makes comfort food. Leanne Morgan makes comfort comedy. It's stuff that makes you feel good.
Makes you feel good. It's funny. It's wholesome.
Yeah, and
for the most part.
It is. She talks about things that happen in real life in the way that you would expect a Southern lady to talk about things. And that's one of the things that really hits it for me, is that she does talk about things like a Southern lady. And I've always found that incredibly charming.
You know, Buc-ee's has Buc-ee's the gas station.
Right.
/ mini mall.
Right. Yeah.
Has the tag Buc-ee's. It has bathrooms that makes mom smile, right?
Right.
I think she could steal that line.
Leanne Morgan,
comedy.
Bathrooms that makes mom smile.
Yeah, except comedy.
Comedy that
makes mom smile.
Yeah, and she's absolutely phenomenal. We hope that you guys enjoy the interview.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, so without further ado.
And honestly, was one of our dreams when we started this. We both said, we would love to have Leanne Morgan.
We would love to have Leanne Morgan.
I know
on.
it's never going to happen.
And it almost didn't.
It happened.
Here it is. Welcome back to the Reverend and the Reprobate. We've got another fantastic interview today. Somebody that you and I have been looking forward to interviewing for a while, who breaks the Norm Macdonald mold of women aren't funny. It is one of the ladies who not only have I found to be one of the best comedians that I've seen over probably the past 18 months. But also she is my favorite comedian to watch with my family.
Yep.
There are very few people. My mom likes Jerry Seinfeld. She likes the late John Panay. And my mom loves today's guest, which is the wonderful, fabulous, talented, and beautiful Mrs. Leanne Morgan.
Thank you, Lucas. Honey, that's one of the best intros I've ever gotten. Oh, I'm so glad this is recorded.
Well, we'll make sure to just send that out. We'll put a transcript of it and tell everybody that's how they got to describe you from now on. So, COVID has been a big player in your industry and all of comedy right now, and I want to get to talking about how that has changed up some stuff, because you've had a tour delayed, but it's also opened up some opportunities for you. Some of your YouTube stuff that you've been putting out is growing really well, and it's just been entertaining to see the way that you've interacted during this time. But I am really curious, how did you get your start into comedy? You were a mom, you raised girls, and now that you're an empty nester, you've blown up as this great comedian. How did that happen? What's your journey been like?
It has been the wildest, sweetest I am amazed by it. Okay, so I'm 55 now, and I've raised my children. I raised a boy and 2 girls, and they're 27, 24, and 22. And I went to the University of Tennessee to go to college. And in my mind, from the time I was 5, I wanted to be in show business. And I didn't know what it was going to be because I'm from a very rural farming community of 500 people. And so my mama would say, "You're going to be a movie star. You're a movie star." And like Hercules. And I thought, and she'd say, "You've got blonde hair all over your body. You're going to photograph well like Marilyn Monroe." And I was like, "Oh, that'll get me to Hollywood." Anyway, I loved theater and all that in high school, and speech and drama and improv. And I went to a tiny little country school where boys got out at 1 o'clock to work in the fields. But I graduated 42 people, but we had this creative class. One guy went on to Juilliard and is an actor and has been in so much stuff. And then 4 of the guys were in a country music band and went pretty far. And so it was just
Wow.
I look back on that, and that really was a sweet thing in the middle of the country where we didn't have much,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, that sounds like
As far as-
Muscle Shoals, this little town in the middle of nowhere with
Yep.
all these incredible musicians. What was the name of the town?
Adams, Tennessee.
So Adams, Tennessee
And
is a
it's-
little town full of movie stars and rock stars. So.
Well, that's the Bell Witch legend. So everyone listening, you need to Google the Bell, Bell Witch. It is fascinating. There's been several movies made in Hollywood about that. But anyway, I went to the University of Tennessee, and I just kind of floundered and didn't know what I was going to do, and made a lot of bad decisions with a lot of men that you wouldn't wipe your feet on. And in the 80s. And I met my husband, and he is from way up in East Tennessee in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And he decided to buy a used mobile home business and moved me to Bean Station, Tennessee, which is probably smaller than where I came from. And this is the crazy thing. I had my first baby, and I wanted to nurse him. I wanted to stay at home. And so I started selling. I didn't work in my major that I got my degree in. I started selling jewelry in East Tennessee, like Mary Kay, to all these little mamas all over East Tennessee. And I look back now, and it was my comedy. There were no comedy clubs around, and I didn't have the confidence for anything like that. And I would go in women's living rooms, and I was supposed to be talking about jewelry, and I would talk about breastfeeding and hemorrhoids, and my husband didn't hear the baby in the night. And anyway, women thought I was funny and started booking me about a year in advance. And so the company noticed and asked me to start speaking at their big things. And people would come up to me and say, "You need to be a stand-up comedian." And I'd always loved comedy. I knew I had timing, but I just, I wanted to have babies, and I don't know, life, you just take twists and turns. And so I did not start doing comedy till I was professionally, or I say professionally, like I'd get paid. I'd go to the cafeteria and do something for the volunteers, and they'd give me a tray of food. But I was 32 years old and had 3 babies when I got started.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And
no kidding.
and it was like my little comedy club. I look back on it, and I developed a lot of material being in those living rooms with them.
That's pretty incredible because it's very organic, right? And your personality comes out a lot in your comedy. You're very forthcoming with a lot of just the stories and things that happen. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about it, is because it's relatable. We were just talking with Victor Dweck, who's another comedian. He's a sketch artist. And one of the things he talks about is how comedy that's relatable is really the best, and I think that's been one of the things that I've definitely enjoyed the most about it. And I recently got married in March, and as you have been something that my wife and I have watched often. We watched your special that's on VidAngel right now, which it's great. It's about 45 minutes long. I want to encourage everybody to go watch that because you can watch it for free on VidAngel. They've got a really awesome program there. But as you're talking about, the different cycles in life and where those things go through, my wife is basically taking notes, and she's like, okay, I want to be as funny about this as Leanne was. So you're going to have to remind me of these things whenever I hit, these different things. My wife is 20. Oh man, I need to nail this. She's 22.
Does her thyroid still work?
Her thyroid is currently working. But she has told me that we're gonna take white flour off the menu because of Leanne's story. So, with your comedy career, so you started off in people's living rooms, just naturally being funny. Now you've moved it to a very successful comedy actor. You're being booked all over the country, and then COVID hits. So you're in the middle of the Big Panty Tour. COVID hits. What did that look like for you?
Love that name, by the way.
Yeah, the name is hysterical.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love a big pair of panties. To me, that says, get comfortable. We're going to have a good time. Okay, but I got to tell you, boys, that in between selling jewelry and, that's been about, people now say, oh, where'd Leanne Morgan come from? And she's an overnight success. But no, this has been about 18 years, and I've toured with different acts. I opened for Paula Dean. I've had 4 television deals for my own sitcom. Like, my career has gone up and down. Like, I do a lot for a little while, and then I couldn't get arrested. And then my kids went through middle school, and they were like, do not talk about me. And that was a very fun time. And then later in high school, they were like, we don't care. And now they're like, tell it, we don't care. But yes, the biggest thing in my career, I got this 100-city tour, and then the main COVID hit. And I was on the cusp. Like, they'd put about 17 shows on sale, and they had sold out.
Mm-hmm.
So at first I was going to do a 50-city tour, and then they came back and offered me 100-city.
Wow.
And so it's all over the United States. But before COVID hit, I was booked in comedy clubs. They were trying to see where I could sell tickets. And let me tell you this. A year before that, after the Dry Bar special came out that you're talking about on VidAngel, I couldn't sell tickets. Like, I got millions of views, and I think I got a lot of fans, but they weren't coming out to shows. They weren't buying tickets.
Huh.
Yeah. And so everybody, I would go to clubs, and they go, we love her, and she's sweet, and she doesn't get drunk and fight in the parking lot, but she can't sell tickets. And then all of a sudden, and I tell you what happened, my social media people put out that video of me talking about me and my husband going to Def Leppard and Journey, and how bad everybody looked because everybody's old. And that went like wildfire. And that's what turned it around.
Really?
I know it was.
Yeah, I've watched that with my parents too, which we've been to. I went with them. You had mentioned something about Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's your jam. We went to several of their concerts. And it was the
Chicago.
same thing. It was It was all older folks, which I at the time was in high school or right in college. But it was the same thing. I saw people getting up and dancing a little bit and sitting down and walking around with inflammation.
Yeah, the first time I ever smelled marijuana, I was, and this is a pastoral confession here. The first time I ever smelled marijuana is when I snuck out with some buddies to go to a Boston concert because we'd fallen in love with Boston.
Yeah, Boston.
And there are people my dad's age in front of us that lit up joints. It was the first time I'd ever seen it. And then one guy handed one to his wife, and she nearly died. She'd never tried marijuana before. We found out later that night. She took this big puff and had an asthma attack right in front of us during the song "Smokin'," and she was like, "This was the worst idea that I've ever had." But the trying to recapture your youth at concerts, that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. Because the music that we listened to growing up is not going to age as well as the classic rock did. This stuff's so bad.
You just imagine a bunch of 60-year-olds in a mosh pit running around in circles, punching each other.
Terrible. It's going to be terrible.
What did they Blink 52 or whatever?
Blink
182. Yeah, what's my name again? That
Travis
song might
Barker
age
is
well.
not going to hold up either.
No, there's no chance. So you stop the tour because of the bad COVID, the mean bad COVID hits, and your tour that is 100 cities long now hits the brakes. Now we have seen that you've got some new shows that are starting to book up as it's picking back up. Longview, Texas has already sold out, which is great. So that does mean that you're continuing to have a great following and that people are buying tickets. How did you pivot during COVID? Because one of the things that I've really loved watching are the new videos that you're putting out on your Instagram and your YouTube and your social media that you're doing, like with your kids and with your friends. You've got a new podcast that's really great. What caused that pivot, and how do you think you've been able to capitalize during this time?
Honey, I wish I could tell you, Lucas, but I just, when this COVID hit, I started cooking. You know, I thought it was going to last about 2 weeks, and I watched The Tiger King. I was enthralled. My girls came home, and that was, fun for me. I was like, oh, what do y'all want to eat? And it was like a big slumber party. And I thought, oh, this, they said, just stay in a couple of weeks and it'll, we thought it wasn't going to last. And so I started cooking, and I'd just get on the back porch and talk about what I was cooking. And I would tell people everything's going to be all right. Because I thought, good night, everything's going to be all right. And people started sharing that and wanting to know what my recipes were. And then they wanted me to say at night, everything's going to be all right. And the sweetest women in the world message me and say, your voice is calming. And then I think, well, on Facebook, really, because that's where that got shared and that went over 1 million fans. Instagram has been a little bit slower, but I just do these little videos of just saying, my mama's sick, and because I think a lot of people are in between launching children and adult children and taking care of elderly. I think that's a big, demographic. And I don't think anybody's speaking to my demographic. I think that there's a lot of women like me and like your mom, and nobody's speaking to them, because there's wonderful comedians like Chelsea Handler. I've worked with her, Amy Schumer, there's all those Nikki Glaser, all those, but they don't speak. What they do is, great, but it's blue and it's about being single and all that kind of stuff. And there was nobody, I think, speaking to mamas that are raising kids and devoted to their family and cooking something. It's just crazy. They have been so sweet to me, the things that people say. But before COVID hit, I knew something was happening, because I would go to these clubs, and these club owners would say, oh my gosh, where have you been? Because they said, your audience is so great. They
clean up.
They got money to spend. They don't fight. Nobody's, high and about to waller in the parking lot. And they bought a lot of food and drinks and stuff. And they were just, they were like, well, you got to come back. But I would see a grandmama, a mama, and somebody 20, 50, and 80.
Several generations of mamas.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about your comedy is it does span generations. We all get it, and I think anybody, especially if you grew up like I did in a sarcastic household, you did the same thing. Both of our moms are wonderful ladies, but you don't want to cross them because they've got mom looks, but they're also really snarky, and they're quick-witted, and you capitalize on all of those things. So even as a young man, like I'm hearing your comedy, and I love it just because it's witty, it's fun, and it's clean. And that was one of the big questions that we had for you is, when you set out to do comedy, did you set out to be a clean comic, or is that just naturally what happened because of the person that you are?
I think naturally it just happened that way. And then later on, as my children were growing, because I mean, I talk about, like having to prostitute myself to their daddy. Shoes and, I mean, I talk about stuff, but it's more innuendo. But I really think later, as my children were growing up, I thought, I don't want them to talk this way. I don't want them to use this language, and I don't want them to. So I can't do it. But I really, really never. It just never dawned on me I just don't. It just, and I don't begrudge anybody who does, but it's just not me. I just don't write that way. I don't think that way. I just think of, babies out on the t-ball field and somebody pooped, or, what I think about and what I talk about is just, there's no reason to say all that. Mm-hmm. And so I think it happened naturally. And I think that as my children grew, I thought, I don't want to say anything that they would be ashamed of, or that I wouldn't want them to say. Yeah. Because I was and they were in a Christian school, and oh my gosh, I was runner up. I'm always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I was in Funniest Mom on Nick at Night. And the Christian school came to me and they go, we are going to shut school down. Nobody's going to learn anything. We're going to show you on Nick at Night. And I shook in my boots because I had a bet, and Jeff Ross, I don't know if you know who Jeff Ross is. Yeah. He's on Comedy Central. Okay. Mm-hmm. Darling.
The Roast Master General.
Yep.
Roast Master General. He said, we need our own talk show, Leanne, and call it Heeb Haw. Because so funny. But anyway, I had a joke about on Sunday morning before we went to church, my husband always wanted to, you know what? And I would take one leg out of my pantyhose in the closet, and so that he would be in a good mood at church, and then take us to get chicken afterwards. And I got to tell y'all, it's a good one. It's a good bit. And Jeff Ross said to me, Leanne, you got to do that bit. It's going to catapult you into fame. And I was like, I can't, because this Christian school, they're not going to have PE because they're going to watch me on Nick at Night. So I didn't do it. I thought, I cannot. And, my children have heard that since then. They're like, oh. But I said, it's true. Every bit of it's true. I had to say, you're daddy.
So, okay. One of the things I do love, though, is the innuendo. Because when you say something like, my husband wanted to, he wants to get nasty, and then you talk about, the love languages and stuff like that. We know what you're talking about, and it's so much. I think it's so much more creative than just like saying the word, is because you've come up with a way to say it without saying it, and it helps not only because it's not offensive, but it also, everybody gets it, and you all know that we all get it, but now I'm not uncomfortable because somebody said sex while I'm sitting next to my mom and my grandmother on the couch, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, I now relate. I now relate that with building bookshelves.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would get uncomfortable with my little mom and daddy. And so, yeah, I just think there's a way you can, that's just how I say it. And I don't know why, but I do know this. I don't compare myself to Johnny Cash, but I remember somebody interviewing Johnny Cash, and he loved the Lord and was saved. And he said, I have got to sing about prison, because people go to prison. I've got to sing about, he's hooked on drugs. He said, I am a Christian, I'm a believer, but I've got to talk about what is real. And so I feel like that, like to a bit about buying a miracle suit, bathing suit, and my friend bought one and she peed in it, and the Dillard's
in the changing room.
Some people don't want you to say pee, but we pee. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with us urinating in a bathing suit. No, we don't need to urinate in the bathing suit.
As long as she bought it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so as long as she bought it and took it home instead of putting it back on the rack and getting a clean one.
I know. Who knows what she did. Wow. But when I heard Johnny Cash say that, I thought, that's how I feel. Like I've got to talk about what is real. And that's real. Mamas and daddies, have to negotiate love languages.
Right.
Everybody's got to do what they got to do. So, my husband's up in the bedroom. I can hear him clearing his throat. He knows that, honey, he has a lot of testosterone on him, but very competitive and an overachiever. And so he's married to me, who is just, everything's a joke to me. Everything's fun. I didn't try in school. I was the one that told her, was talking and got everybody in trouble.
But it's working for you now.
It is. And isn't this crazy that I've been doing this? And I got to tell y'all, there were times when I thought, oh my gosh, I'm just going to hit it big. I had television deals with ABC and Warner Brothers. And, that my second deal was with Matt Williams that created Roseanne and Home Improvement.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, one of the biggest people in television. Oh, he's a doll. He's a doll. Y'all would love him. And so there were times when I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. And then now I look back and I think I would have had to move to LA. Ooh. I would have raised those children somewhere completely different. They wouldn't be who they are now, and I'm so glad. I look back on it and I think that's God's protection over us.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, because they were raised in Knoxville in a sweet community, and they're all darling, and who knows, they'd be wearing Prada shoes and doing Lord knows what.
Wearing Prada shoes and smoking the devil's lettuce.
Well, yeah, it seems like you mentioned there's been peaks and valleys in your career as you've been going, but it seems like you are picking up some serious steam. Tell us about your deal with Sony that you're working on.
Okay, well, this is I'll tell y'all who found me, and he is darling. His wife found me on Facebook talking about how my middle child was so hateful, and she still can be. But they have 3 daughters, and he lives in Nashville, but he's the president of the Affirm arm of Sony. So that is the arm of Sony that does all the inspirational, like Tom Hanks' last movie with playing In the Neighborhood, Fred.
Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers.
Yeah. Mr. Rogers. And then Soul Surfer. And then they do a lot of those Kendrick boys that do those films.
Yeah.
So they did all of those, and he's been very successful. And anyway, he wanted to meet with me in Nashville, and he said we just are big fans. And so we've pitched one show out in LA before the COVID hit, and everybody passed on it. And then he said, I'm not stopping. So I've got all new writers for a whole new thing, and they are so funny. And they did, I don't know if y'all ever saw with Billy Ray Cyrus on CMT, The King, something about.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot think of my name. But anyway, one of them lived with, was around Billy Ray Cyrus and Miley before she hit it big and all that. He also lived with Taylor Swift's family for a while. And so they've got this whole look into Nashville and the country music industry and all that. So it's kind of something to do with that. And it's a really neat concept. And so we're in the beginnings of that. We're developing characters and all that. And who knows? Getting a television show is it's easier to win the lottery than it is to get a television show on.
No doubt.
So, but it's fun. It's fun to be in the game. I've enjoyed getting to do this.
Yeah, and so you said this is the 4th one that you've had in production. And right now with your rise that you've been going through, this seems like it's got some good legs. So I'm really excited to see where this is heading. Is there a way that we can who do we need to write letters to tell them sight unseen, buy this pilot and make this happen because we want to see Leanne's show? Because we'll do it.
No. Well, thank you. And a lot of people said, "Oh, are you going to have a Netflix special?" And I think that I don't know if I'm the people that they have for Netflix specials, who I love all of them, like Ryan Hamilton. Have y'all ever watched Ryan Hamilton?
I've not seen Ryan Hamilton.
Oh my gosh, y'all would love him. Love him. His special, Fortune Feimster. I mean, I just love comedy, and I love all those specials. Jim Gaffigan, Brian Regan, all of them. But I've been told, they go, just wait. When that tour hits, you'll do a special on Amazon or so. I don't know. But it could be Netflix. You could say, there's a country woman that's from Knoxville, Tennessee, and she's on fire. And we want to see her television show because I think they want to pitch this to streaming.
Okay.
To streaming,
mm-hmm. On one of the platforms.
Instead of ABC, NBC, and CBS and Fox, which is what we've always gone to because of traditional sitcoms.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But now, everybody wants to be in streaming. And I'm a huge fan of The Office, Parks and Recreation, where it's one camera. I love all that.
Yeah, I didn't even see Parks and Rec until it was streaming.
Yeah.
So there's a huge, the Office, how many, like 3 different times Netflix has almost dropped The Office.
Yeah, and I think.
There have been huge petitions in order to bring it back because people wanted it. That's how they consumed that, even more so than, because their streaming numbers.
How are we supposed to stay happy if we can't watch The Office?
Yeah, but their streaming numbers were so much higher than whenever they were airing. It was ridiculous. And so I think that there is a great potential for sitcoms on streaming because both of those shows did great on streaming. The Ranch, which is the new Ashton Kutcher vehicle, but it's sort of a family-ish sitcom that was made for streaming. So it sounds like it's got a lot of potential. I'm really excited to see where that's going.
So let's say that next week everyone starts writing letters about you getting a new special, This Country Girl. Do you have material that hasn't been released yet?
Yes, and I was working on a whole hour, and I had it, and then the COVID
and then
hit.
This hit, yeah.
And it has been taped in different clubs, and I have to go through that and watch myself, which is, I hate it. But I'm trying to piece it together because I didn't work for so many months that, if you're not working that muscle, I would think, what did I say? I can't even remember. And how did I do it? So I'm going to have to work again to get it. I do have it on film in a lot of places, but I had a whole new hour.
Wow.
And yes. It was just crazy when that happened. And I kept thinking, 2 months. My concert promoters would go, we're going to move them 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to move them another 2 months. And then here we are. But I don't know. What do you boys think? What do y'all think is going to happen?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I do know that we've got a couple comedian friends. One of them, Jeremy Nunez, told us that he had the same thing. He had a show in 2020, a tour lined up in, I think he said May.
Yeah.
And it ended up just getting pushed back, and now it's May 2021. And I've heard other comedians, to stay sharp, they've been doing Zoom calls where they do their set over Zoom for big corporate meetings or something. And how odd it is in this time where everyone's muting their computers and you're just essentially doing your set with no feedback from the audience. Like, have you experienced any of that?
I've not done that because I've got a good friend who has done it, and she said it's like a slow death. And so my manager has said, Leanne will be on she can do your event, but it needs to be a question and answer because she can't stand in the living room and talk to the computer.
Yeah.
I just, I'd pass stuff up because I just thought it would be excruciating. So I've done a lot of question and answer and, but not, I say it, not a lot because, I don't know. It just freaked me out, but I've been able to work a little bit here and there. There will be a comedy club, a small venue that will socially distance and only have like 30% capacity or 50% capacity. And especially in the summer, in the fall, before it got so bad again. Like, I don't know if anybody's going to do anything in January and February because it's so, ramped up. But I did, some clubs in the South and Omaha, Nebraska. And had wonderful crowds. They, people wore masks. So there's been little pockets I've been able to do shows, and a lot of comedians are out working every weekend. They're just doing it for a smaller crowd, but you're on stage and it helps you.
So what do you think would be worse? Doing the Zoom with to an audience of silent faces, or bombing, the worst bombing story?
Well, bombing's pretty bad. Bombing's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
so I guess the question is bombing or silently not knowing anything.
I guess I'd probably rather do a Zoom and just do, a tap dance and try to keep all to my hair. I guess I'd rather do that than when it is so bad. Yeah. But I did one of the first corporate things I ever did, and corporate can go so bad. And then it can be really good. And my best friend that's in comedy that we traveled together for years, we'd have one of these horrible gigs, and I call her and I go, I'm going to quit. I'm quitting comedy. And she go, okay. And then I call her back the next day. I'm going to stay. I'm going to do it. And then she called me and go, okay, I just did something for egg farmers. I'm quitting. But I did a show for men that make carpet fiber. Huh? And I got to tell y'all that half the room were Japanese men that didn't speak English. And then the other half were just men that make carpet fiber. I mean, they can't be that fun. I mean,
sounds
there
like
was
a very
laugh.
lively bunch.
Oh, and there was not a laugh. And so when there's no laughs, you go through 45 minutes in 20, 25. So then you're pulling stuff out of your butt and thinking, I just need to get the check. I mean, so we've all had those. I mean, I've had horrible ones. But when in a comedy club, now that I'm older and I've been through it so much, it's always good. And if it's your audience that loves you and they come for you, that's like, it's unbelievable. The feeling and the waves of laughter, and when people are buying into you, and that has been one, and that was my goal. I thought, I many a time I thought, well, I'm just quitting. I gotta, I'll go to work at Target. I'll go put the bedding up in the back. And, I've always thought that'd be fun. But what was I saying? But anytime that I was ready to quit, then something would happen again. Like, well, here's the television deal with Fremantle and Matt Williams. And then, that wouldn't happen. And then I, maybe couldn't get booked, or doing, little private shows, corporate things or whatever that are great, but, not always good. And it's not like being in a comedy club or a theater. And then, and anyway, then this happened. And I always thought if I could just be like Jim Gaffigan or Brian Regan, if I could find my audience and they would come see me. And if it was even in small theaters, like 300 seats, if I could just do that was my dream. And then, and that's what's happened.
Well,
it's awesome. Bigger theaters than that.
Oh, the one in Longview, I believe, is bigger than that. That's coming up in early February, and
you are very welcome in Texas.
Yeah,
even
come on,
the rest of the world,
anytime.
The rest of the world may be shut down, but we're staying open for Leanne Morgan.
Yep,
and I was just in Dallas and Houston.
Yeah, and if you need. If you the next time you come down, if you need something to do, we got plenty of stuff that we can go and shoot and just hang out and have a time. So whenever you're ready, you talked about you talked about finding your audience and how that has changed the way that things go on stage. There are a couple of things that are very unique to you that you do in your comedy, and one that I've just really been curious about the origins of, and that is the word yummy. Mm-hmm. Where did the word yummy come from, and how did that become the title for the show?
And then side question to that, how do we earn the adjective yummy?
Yeah, what do we have to do to become yummy?
Y'all are yummy.
Yes, done.
Y'all are good interviewers and kind and sweet.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, y'all really are. Because a lot of times people want to interview you and then they end up talking the whole time about what they're doing. And that's fine. I like to hear about other people, but I think, what am I doing here?
We are not interested.
But no, y'all are wonderful. Okay, yummy. Really and truly, my middle child has nannied babies when she was in college, and then went to work for Make-A-Wish, and then went to work at East Tennessee Children's Hospital, and has a heart for children. And I have always been very nurturing and kissed my babies in the mouth. I nursed a long time. I just am in love with them. And she would say, that baby's so yummy, or, he like see a little old man and go, he is so yummy. And I think, I don't know where I started it, if I talked about my dogs and said they were yummy, because we love our dogs. Mm-hmm. We're in love with them. But we just use that word in our house a lot. We think people are pretty yummy.
Yeah. Yeah. And the dogs, you talk about them giving you big old mouth kisses. That's got to be pretty yummy.
Yeah, they're yummy. And then I've got this grandbaby who is stunning.
Just the yummiest.
And he's yummy. We all just go, look how yummy he is. I don't know. It's just a word that I use. And I have women show up in T-shirts with like bagels on it and yummy. I know. I need to do a T-shirt.
You should. I'd rock some Leanne Morgan merchandise. There's just no two ways about that. So I want to ask a question that my mom, I was talking to her on the phone beforehand.
I've been waiting for this question.
And she goes, look, there's a lot of stuff that I want you to ask Leanne Morgan, but there is a practical thing that I need to know as a mother. So both of our parents, I'm the oldest of 4, Danley is the oldest of 3. Both of our parents stopped after they had girls. So they said once we had girls, they were like, that was it. They were too different. They couldn't do it.
2 boys and a girl for me.
And 3 boys and a girl for us. And so my mom wanted to know, my sister's in her 30s, what did you do to make your daughter be nice to you again? That's what my mom wanted to know. That was her question. Ask her, what do I need to do to make my daughter be nice to me again?
Oh, okay. I tell your precious mama that my girls are darling, and they're my best friends now, because they're 22 and 24, and we're best friends now that they're grown, and I don't, I can't really tell them what to do. I'm still scared to death of them. They're both, when the hormones happen, the middle one, who loves children and works for Children's Hospital, works in nonprofit, mm-hmm. and does not care about money, loves everybody, has got a light, but when 2 days out of the month, I hate to say that to you boys, but I'm scared to death of her. Her daddy's scared of her. We don't answer the phone. She still can cut you with words that it's awful, but then she'll call back in a couple of days, and she usually doesn't say she's sorry, but she'll get back in with me. But we're just really good. Good friends. I didn't want to be their best friend when they were 16 and, because I saw Billy Ray Cyrus talk to Barbara Walters on an interview, and he said that he and Miley were best friends. And I don't mean to throw them under the bus, because look at them. But,
yeah,
they were, I think, smoking the lettuce together, and she was on a stripper pole there for a while. And so I just was their mama when they were. But now we're really good friends, and they check on me. They want to know where I am. That, my boy, I'm in love with him, and he was my first, and it's so much easier to raise than my girls, and was never smart aleck. But, now he's married. He clings to his wife. I don't, he'll call me, but not very often. I have to call him and say, I've got a roast in a crock pot. Come over. But my baby child was she's 22, and we're together. She's a professional makeup artist, and was in school in Manhattan when the COVID hit. She graduated and was supposed to go to LA, and then had to come home. And so, that can be tense, because she's 22. She doesn't want to live with us, but she has to, because there's no production going on. And so we've had some volatile moments, and then we kiss and make up. Tell your little mama, I don't know what I'm talking about, but we really just have a good time, and we laugh a lot. I've enjoyed my children. I know I made a lot of mistakes, and I didn't push them in school, and I let them get out of school to go to the zoo. and they're getting like straight A's. And he would, if he had them, if he had been, he was traveling, but if he had been around, they would have ended up in Harvard, but with a nervous tick, I tell people. But I was, we just enjoyed each other. We have danced in the kitchen when I'm cooking. We sing a lot, dance a lot, laugh a lot. They've got good sense of humor. Their daddy does too. He's just real dry, and his only come out like once every 4 months. But when it does, it's a zinger, and you hold on to it.
Yeah.
But my kids have got a good sense of humor, and we really have a good time. And my boy married a girl that we love, and she fits in with us, and she's very funny. So tell your little mama that her 30-year-old, because I hear that all the time. I mean, they can turn on you in a dime. You can be buying them a bunch of stuff, and they're like, "What are you looking at me like that for?" And you're like, "What did I don't even know what I'm doing." Oh.
Yeah,
girls are volatile.
Yeah, I'm trying to crack that same code because my wife is mad at me right now because I shaved this morning. I've had a beard, and she does not like it when I shave. And now it was unintentional. I didn't mean to, but
didn't check the razor setting before it happened.
I was shaving down, and it cut a little too deep, and I was like, "Well, I just got to go to 0 now." And I walked out, and she was just staring at me like, "What are you doing? What are you thinking?" Do you get mad at your husband too when he shaves? Does he ever grow some facial hair out and you like it?
He does. He'll grow a little bit. No, I get mad at him over a lot of other things. He does not chat, and very introverted, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I had all these kids, and then we became empty nesters, and I thought, oh my gosh, he really doesn't talk. And we bought some property in the woods, 4.5 acres in the woods, and we thought we were going to build. And then I just decided I can't live in the woods with him and him not chat. I need
who are you going to
people.
talk to?
Yeah.
I know. I need people. I can't be out there with coyotes and stuff, freaked out in the woods. So I think we're going to sell that. But yeah, I get mad at him over other things. Like today, I got upset. I made a mistake, something that a branding deal I did, and I forgot to do something, a video. And it just tore me up because that's not like me. And I just overlooked something, and they told me today, you didn't do that. And my heart was beating out of my body. And I told my husband, I go, my heart is beating out of my body, and I didn't do that. It is my fault. And he goes, well, you should have paid more attention. Instead of
very empathetic.
He'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He likes to when I'm torn up, I need some help. I need to be soothed. He doesn't believe in that. Mm-hmm. He likes to say, well, you shouldn't have been, and if you were more organized,
There you go. Fixed.
Yeah.
We fixed that.
Done.
Yeah.
Not going to happen again.
Fixed.
Done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've learned that lesson too.
I'm in process of learning that lesson currently.
I
actually right this moment.
I've been married for 13 years. You've been married for 6 months now?
10. 10. This is month 10 of marriage.
Yeah, so we're in different stages.
Yes. Yeah, you have experience and I have a steep learning curve. So, but my wife is wonderful and gracious, and when I make a mistake, she tells me about it quickly, so that it doesn't sit there and fester, and then she will accept my apology when I am ready to be specific about what I did wrong.
Isn't that wonderful that she can accept apology and that you say you're sorry? Some people don't do that.
Yeah, it's been a good thing. I will tell you,
we were raised right. We're from Texas.
Yeah, we got good moms. So I want to know, there are so many people right now that are in positions where they're thinking about what they're going to do next. Like the pandemic has put a lot of people out of work. And so there are people that are now at this point where they're thinking, you know what? There's something that I've always wanted to do. Maybe this is my chance to go after it. We've seen a lot of people that have created podcasts like what we've done. Mm-hmm. There are people that are taking their first sort of stabs in the dark at doing entertainment stuff and things like that. What would you what would you tell somebody that was in your shoes when you were 32 and wanting to pursue comedy, that was a mother of a few kids, that had a family, that had those things that she wanted, but there was still this dream of wanting to do something different? What piece of advice would you give them, or what would you say to encourage them right now, to people that are in those shoes and wanting to do something different?
I would tell them, you gotta do it. You can't go through life and wish that you'd done something. I just knew in my heart this was something that I wanted to do. And even when like comedy club owners would say to me, "You've got 3 children, Leanne, you can't do this. You'd have to be gone all week." And they were right. But I would think in my heart, I'm going to find another way. I think that it's important in life to put yourself out there. If you don't get out of your comfort zone, you don't grow. And I know I saw that on Barney when my children were little, but you really do grow, and it's uncomfortable, but that's when wonderful things happen. And I believe in dreams, and I believe in pursuing them. And I just think you can do anything. And if you don't try, you're never going to know. So why not try? And if something doesn't work, there'll be something else, and that will lead to something else. Everything, is connected to each other. And like y'all doing this podcast, how wonderful. And y'all really are good interviewers.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to say that we've worked really hard at applying our craft, but instead what we've done, and sort of the tagline to our podcast, is that we just like to interview interesting people. And after watching the video that got me hooked was the one about your daughter being mean. You're like, she's beautiful and she's athletic and she's mean. And I was like, she raised my sister. So, but man, this is Leanne Morgan. Check her out on VidAngel, her new special there. She's got some Dry Bar comedy specials. New tour dates coming out in 2021 with the Big Panty Tour, which we're excited to hear and see. She's got a lot of cool stuff on Facebook and YouTube. Where else can we find you on social media?
Leanne Morgan Comedy on Instagram and Twitter. And I do have a TikTok. I haven't gotten into that much, but I do have a TikTok, and maybe I'll get the strength to do that. It's been all I could do to do what I've been doing, but Leanne Morgan Comedy. And I don't tweet much because Twitter, I think, is kind of mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so but I do look at it, and I do see what's going on because with other comedians and stuff. But I tweet every once in a while. Every once in a while, I'll put a zinger out there. The rest of the time, I'm just like retweeting somebody said, but I'm on that too. But mainly Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome.
Yeah, I endorse your idea of trying TikTok. I love the energy on TikTok. Like when we found out that China owned TikTok, my heart broke a little bit because I love the energy.
It's like a Vine.
Yeah, it's like Vine.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Vine was great.
You should totally do it.
I think you should too.
I have a lot of people doing my voice, talking about their daughter being mean, and whoever is the girl that's got more following than anybody on Instagram, her mama did my voice talking about how mean she was.
Is it Jay? I think there's Jay.
It's some little frail girl.
I think that's who it
is.
And
my nephew was like, "Oh my gosh, Aunt Leanne, you don't understand. This girl's got like 64 million. I don't know how many she had, and something crazy." And I was like, "What?" So I have a lot of people doing my voices, a lot of daddies doing my voice, talking about their child being mean. And my baby, she'll watch recipes and like how to get, paint out of a coat. I mean, just crazy stuff on TikTok. But I gotta get. I'm not used to that. And I didn't want China, I didn't want them to be over us. And did we get out from under that with them with TikTok?
I think they're still working on it.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah. I ended up deleting TikTok, and then I got so sad that I was like, I don't care. I just re-downloaded TikTok and started watching it again.
We'll let the Chinese track us if they need to. Yeah. It's not like Apple doesn't already know every move that we make anyway, so...
Yeah.
Isn't it the truth, boy?
It is. Well, hey, Leanne, thank you so much for your time tonight. We've absolutely loved having you on. Make sure that you guys check out Leanne's stuff and support her. This has been an absolute blast. We appreciate it. You've been a gem.
Yep.
Well, y'all have been darling and precious, and I can tell y'all were raised right. And I've had a ball.
Well, good.
Thank y'all so much.
Leanne freaking Morgan. That was surreal.
LFM.
I don't think we're going to put that on anything. Yes. That was kind of surreal for me. I don't know. How was it for you?
Oh, yeah.
It's odd to have.
Well, you know, my thyroid's acting up, and I had a little bit of a hot flash, and she came on. I just felt thrown.
You know, it's not often in these interviews that we've done, and we've interviewed some really incredible people. David Baker, Stephen Mansfield, heroes of mine, Doug TeNapel, another guy that's just a force to be reckoned with in his field.
Yeah, what are we doing?
I was a little starstruck by Leanne Morgan. I'm not gonna lie. She's one of my favorite comedians. Yeah, and even over video chat, she's got a very cool presence where there was a lot of that interview where I was like, okay, it is probably the most where I felt like I need to have my junk together going into this interview. But she, again, really like every guest we've had on, it seems like gracious, incredibly sweet. And looking at her, you know, she talked about her career path and how, you know, she went from sort of aimless college student to wanted to be in entertainment. All of the people that she went to school with. The stones that lady has, too, to stick it out for 18 years. No joke. It's great. And now... It's very inspirational. Right, yeah. She's been incredibly successful. Because we've been doing this for, I don't know, 7 months? 7 months, yep. It's been great, and I love it, but there have been times where it's like, you know, how much longer is this going to take before we're an internet sensation? Yeah, and there is. You got to stick to it, which is one thing that one of the things that she said at the end is, for those who are wanting to do something, do it. Put yourself out there. Right. She did, and she's hilarious, fantastic, and she's a rising star. And there's an old saying amongst preachers that every pastor wants to quit on Monday morning. That we all do, because Sunday is so hard that you get up. You know, most of us are at the church. Hour. Yeah, but most of us are at the church by like 5 or 6 in the morning. We're trying to put the final touches on everything. A lot of us are teaching Bible study classes. We're trying to take care of the congregation and love everybody as they're coming in. But no matter what we do, our entire job, how good we pastor, is judged on this little like 20 to 45 minute window on Sunday morning. And that if you do bad during that window, if you don't think that you preached a good message, and most of us never tout our own messages, that we know every mistake that we made, and by Saturday or by Sunday night into Monday morning, we're just like, I'm no good at this. No one is ever coming back to our church. I totally bombed. Yeah. And nobody's going to get saved because I'm so bad at my job. And she talked a little bit about having some of those same things. And we do, I mean, Chris Respis, who I host the Lake City podcast with, he and I call each other all the time. And we're like, hey, I suck at this. Like, there's no way, like, if God has removed his anointing from anybody, proof of it was yesterday during my sermon. And so she talked a little bit about that same kind of thing, in the sense that, you know, she would do bad at a club, or she would have a night that was a little rough. She'd call a friend and she was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then the next day she's sticking it out. And I think that she brings that kind of encouragement to not just her comedy, but to a lot of her internet videos. She talked about how, you know, the thing that so many people mentioned is at the end of the videos that she was making during the pandemic was that everything's going to be okay. And that little bit of just encouragement and reassurance and all of that, I think, is really what makes her so dynamic especially in a field right now where we're seeing so many comedians that are going the other way. There was a couple of guys. It might have been the guys in the Babylon Bee.
Yeah.
That they said that the people that are doing late night, and we talked about this a little bit with Victor Dweck as well. Mm-hmm. The people that are doing late night are no longer telling jokes. They are saying things in order to get applause from the audience. Mm-hmm. Right? Bill Maher is famous for it, is that he'll put, throw a zinger out there, and whether it's true or not, it doesn't really matter, but he gives a look to the audience and he gets applause. He doesn't get laughs anymore. They're not telling jokes. They're saying things to virtue signal and things like that, and Leanne is not. She's telling jokes, she's being funny, she's being encouraging, and she's talking about real life the way that regular people talk about real life. She just does it way funnier.
And she says it in that wonderful Southern drawl.
Oh man, that Tennessee accent that she's got is just magnificent. That is just
buttermilk and cornbread.
Great call. Yeah, buttermilk and cornbread, I think, to the T. And it was not just such a blast to have her on, but to realize over the course of the interview how much work and time and effort she's put into this is pretty incredible. You've been married now for 13 years. Your wife is also a mom, right? Can you imagine Heather trying to be a parent to you and to Kale, and then at night try to go and make a career as a comedian?
Oh, she's hilarious, but she would never want to do that. So,
right.
So in the situation, imagining that,
sure,
man, that is a tough gig.
Absolutely. And yet, not only is she doing it, she's sticking it out. She's doing it successfully.
Yep.
You talk about being inspirational. We've got a lot of people that we mentioned at the beginning of the interview that there are so many comedians that are like, well, women just patently aren't funny. And she doesn't go the route that so many comedians do. She doesn't try to work blues. She doesn't try to be raunchy. She's not trying to play anybody else's game. She's being herself. And I have to say,
that's why she's hilarious.
Yeah, and
that's why she's so popular. That's the secret to her success.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree, and I think one of the things for me is that being a young married guy in my mid-30s that is a pastor, I'm in a totally different area of life. I'm childless right now. Lord willing, that'll happen someday in the future. But I can look at Leanne's story and draw inspiration from it because of her tenacity, because of her success, but also because of the attitude and the joy that comes with it. And I think that is such an amazing part about who she is, and one of the things that I think really came through in the interview that was just great.
I agree. I think I've said this a million times, but it's my favorite part of what we're doing is we get to meet really cool, great people. And the headlines for me for this interview is we made a new friend and she thinks we're yummy. It does not get much better than that.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. I mean, there have been enough let's just say weird places where we've ended with a guest where we're like, we really don't know where we stand here. But Leanne did say that we were yummy, which I think was the goal for both of us.
Of course it was.
I did
want to ask her, and I chose not to, but I really wanted to know who's yummier. Because we're both competitive, too.
Yeah.
Who is the yummiest of the two of us? That'll be in part 2.
Do you think you're going to win that?
No. I do not. I shaved, number 1, and number 2, you are an adorable pastor. So, no, there's no way I'm going to win. But I still want to know.
I do too. So, next time that we interview Leanne Morgan on The Reverend and the Reprobate, who's yummier? That just feels so weird to say.
It does.
That feels so weird to say.
Well, hey, thanks for checking it out.
Subscribe, comment,
ding that little bell notification. And it's been a while since we said this, but if you do want to support our channel,
oh my gosh, here we go.
Just take take a dollar bill. It can be any denomination, and just roll it up and stick it in the USB drive. We'll get it.
Yeah, and while you ruin your computer, remember to check out Leanne Morgan on Facebook, on Instagram, possibly on TikTok. She's got a Twitter. Look at her stuff on VidAngel, and be checking out her website so that you can see when the new tour dates are coming out for the Big Panty Tour. Make sure that you support her and what she's doing.
Amazing at naming things.
She is.
Her podcast, Sweaty and Pissed. Hilarious.
Pretty incredible. And we didn't even get to talk about that.
No, we didn't.
Tons of stuff to go check out from
time.
Leanne Morgan. Make sure that you check her out. Thank you so much, Leanne, for coming on. And we'll see you guys next week.
Because I think y'all are so sweet. I don't know. Okay. This is Leanne Morgan. I'm a comedian, and this is why you should never listen to those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.